Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's Richie from Boston. It is the 30th. It is July. It is the year 2020. And once again, I have Dr. Andrew KAUFMAN, who has taken time out of his busy life to come back here, to sit here with an asshole with no front tooth and answer your questions in this time of the pending extreme lockdown. Andrew, I know you've got a long list. We missed last week, I believe, or maybe we didn't even know. But thanks for jumping in.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, this is, it's really important to be doing this, especially now. And, Richie, it's great to be on your show. I mean, you really helped me out from the beginning. And so, I love doing this. It's one of the most fun things that I do, in all the work I do. And I know it seems weird that it's fun, but I actually do enjoy it. So I'm happy to be back here and, keep putting these out and answering people's questions.
I shouldn't say this. I shouldn't say I cannot believe, but I cannot believe they took Del Bigtree's channel down. Fortunately, your talk with him remains. That's the beauty of the internet.
Yep. And, it still remains on my channel for now, and I'm sure it's out there. And, it was definitely kind of surprising, but not surprising at all that the Highwire got taken down. But, it's like, what are we coming to? They were putting out great information. They had experts from all over the world, like very mainstream people. I was very much one of the biggest fringe people that they interviewed. And, still it doesn't matter.
Well, it's funny that you have to actually refer to yourself as fringe, but in this day and age, we're considered fringe, even though we've literally been warning for a decade that we will come to a point of martial law or extreme lockdown. We will have military in the street. They will destroy the dollar, and then they will force you one way or the other to get a vaccination. We're here. How much? It's astonishing to me how much more do people need. I was showing you before we hit the button that Dr. Anthony Fauci, that truth-telling monument to American medical machinery. How's that?
That's a mouthful.
He has come out with another. Here's the newest thing we'll be seeing. Dr. Fauci is now recommending that everyone wears goggles and a face shield in addition to the mask. Now, Andrew, you've covered this topic. I would suspect, I'm going to guess, you've stayed up many nights reading about germs, germ theory, terrain theory, everything else, including the New England Journal of Medicine, PubMed, etc. What do you make of this, man? Come on.
Well, it's almost comical in a sense, and it certainly speaks to, testing the people, like how much can we get people to go along with, because the more that they just willingly go along with, then the easier it will be to keep things rolling. And, in a strange way, it's like we know the masks are not effective, right? But so maybe, more should be done in a sense, but that's definitely not going to help. I mean, wearing goggles, it'd be pretty ridiculous. What's going to be next? Hazmat suits?
No, I wouldn't even imagine that won't be next, because I brought up an article that I was telling you about earlier. You're probably already aware of. But the president of Belarus, I believe that's what it is. I'm going off the top of my head right now. He came out publicly in an Indian newspaper that made its way over here, where the World Economic Forum or the International Monetary Fund, one of the two, neither are medical foundations in any way, offered them 10 times more aid as they did for the first down to impose an extreme lockdown this time. Right. And for some reason, at 12 o'clock tomorrow night, at 12:01, mandatory masks, etc., go into effect in this entire area, which you and I both live in, FEMA Region 1. And that's, it sounds conspiratorial, but it's a fact. We are in FEMA Region 1. So I don't know what's going on, but they from what I've seen, day to day, wheels down, coast to coast, everybody's going along with the program. And the reason they're going along with it is you can't interact. You can't go to a store. You can't go in a building without somebody attacking you. I have been, but most people don't want any type of confrontation. You know what I'm saying? And I know that you've been doing the same.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is difficult to get up the muster and the nerve, right, to go into places when you know that you risk being, attacked in some way. And so, I'm very deliberate. I get in a certain mindset, and you're right. I don't love to go out, so I have to kind of be pushed, And fortunately, the grocery store where I live now, the main one, they've adopted a nice policy where they just have somebody at the door offering you a mask if you don't have one. But if you decline, they're very polite and they don't bother you for the rest of the time that you're in the store. So none of the managers or the cashiers have to do any policing. They just put this, and they chose someone with a friendly personality. So I really appreciate that. I want to, give a shout out to Wegmans in New York for doing that.
Nice.
But it's like I do, hesitate. And I was actually doing some shopping yesterday, and I went to Macy's because it was a clothing issue for a friend, and I accompanied, and everything was fine.
A clothing issue that I needed a doctor. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, that's right. It was medical clothing. So we they had this announcement a couple of times on like the PA system in the store saying, like that masks are mandatory and you'll be asked to leave and that kind of thing. But we just kept shopping and went to the checkout line, and there was a shortage of cashiers, as usual in a department store. But once we got up there, you could tell the cashier was really nervous around us, like asked us why we weren't wearing a mask. And, I said there are so many reasons. And then as soon as the purchase was complete, like the instant it was complete, she said, next time you come here, you'll have to wear masks. Right. And it was like, once she made her commission.
Right. Well, here's the deal. I live in a very, very, my hat's freaking me out. I haven't got a haircut since this entire thing started because I'm not sitting in front of a dude with a mask on. I can't do it. So at any rate, I live in a very small community. It's actually an island, one way in, one way out, surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean. Very, very small community. I went to a sub shop the other day, a sandwich shop, whatever you want to call it. And I walked in and they thought I was in there to break balls. They're like, did you see the post on Facebook? I said, I do not engage in Facebook at all. You're talking to the wrong guy. They're in there. This store is tiny, huge pizza oven. It's your average sub shop, pizza shop.
Yeah. 2,000
degrees. Everybody's wearing shields and masks and they're dying. And I'm standing there with no mask. And they're like, I said, believe it or not, I have asthma. And believe it or not, you're not actually allowed to ask me that. And they all went, oh. And they're like, oh. I'm like, yeah. Think about it. You know what I'm saying? the thing that's allowing this to happen are the chains, the corporations, the stores. They're the ones enforcing these mandates that are utterly, entirely, completely. A mayor and a governor cannot tell you to do anything. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when they put it out in the media and then the corporations back it up, we're in the pickle that we're in right now. So at any rate, long story longer. You want to jump on the list?
Yeah, sure.
Rolling, it's your call, brother.
We shall march on.
All right, let's do this thing.
Let me remind everyone that this is not medical advice, you're not my patient, I'm not your doctor, but I'm giving my opinion and giving out information in answers to these questions. And I want to remind everyone, too, that I'm available for consultation if you want to work with me individually and get more individualized information. And some of these questions we'll have to refer to that. But I got some really interesting questions this week, so I'm excited to get going. So let's go. First, we have Barry from Ontario, Rob from Barry, Ontario, Canada. Have you heard of the Iceman Wim Hof's breathing techniques, specifically the study where he was injected with an endotoxin, I believe with a university in Germany, and used his breathing technique to expel the toxin from his system? He has also climbed Everest in shorts, ran a marathon in the desert without water, etc., all with his ability to control his breath. Pretty incredible. Yes, absolutely incredible. And I'm definitely a fan of Wim Hof. And I often recommend to clients or tell them about his breathing techniques. And one thing I think of that may be going on, that may be responsible for some of these benefits, actually is alkalinizing the blood. So this is a good time to talk about that topic because I think it's confusing to people. But I think there's a general sense in the natural healing world that acidic, if your body is acidic, that it's bad and that it fosters disease. And if your body is alkaline, that's a healthy state and resistant to disease. And that's absolutely true, but you can't just look at the body as a whole, because we have different compartments in our body that have different requirements for acid and base balance. And there's, specific chemistry that has to go on. Like in the stomach, for example, our stomach makes hydrochloric acid, which is one of the most potent acids. And it has to be in a highly acidic environment, and that helps with digestion and is a barrier to parasites getting into our body, etc. But where we're really talking about wanting to have alkalinity and not acidity is in the blood. And the blood pH is regulated partly by breathing. And so this is where the Wim Hof method comes into play, that through taking these kinds of deep breaths and breath holding techniques, that you actually are able to create an alkaline environment in your blood by getting rid of CO2. And CO2 is what forms the acid in your blood that brings the pH down. So this is a very effective technique. It's good to alkalinize your blood. It can obviously promote detoxification. And I don't know the exact mechanisms, but it would be interesting to see if there's some research out that. But Wim Hof is definitely an incredible guy and someone to learn a lot from. All right. We have Tina in Lafayette, Indiana next. And Tina writes, September 19th, the 5G tower was put 20 feet from my bedroom window. Since November, I've been getting massive headaches in the back of the neck with pressure and also throbs in my temples. I'm always tired and sleep 12 hours a night and nap too. I'm losing short-term memory and I'm so lethargic I can't even keep my house in order anymore. I also have BC. I'm not sure what that is. Is this change in me due to cancer or 5G? What do I do? Well, I'm not sure what makes you think of cancer, but I think you described some of the typical problems that people can get from strong EMF signals, including 5G. So like the headaches is one of the most common things. And especially if this corresponds in time with when that unit was turned on, and you want to make sure that it's actually been activated, because sometimes they install these units but don't actually turn them on. But if your symptoms correspond to right after they turned it on, then that is clearly the issue. So let me give you, and I think this is a question that a lot of people have, Richie, right? Like, how do I protect myself against EMF radiation, especially smart meters and 5G, right? Which seems to be being installed more and more. So there's several things you do. I mean, one thing you could certainly consider is relocating to some place that has less proximity to a 5G tower. But I realize that proposes a lot of problems and is difficult. But in order to mitigate it, I think you can do some things. So one is identify the wall that's directly between the tower and where you spend your time and focus on that. So one thing you could do is you could actually put plants on that wall. And plants tend to absorb the EMF radiation, and so that will reduce the dose that you're getting. A lot of people, the biggest part of time they spend at home, I guess maybe outside of a lockdown, is when they're sleeping, right? And sleep counts for a lot of hours of our time, right? And definitely a big fraction of when we're home. So you might focus on your sleeping area too, in terms of reducing your exposure. There's something called a Faraday cage that you can either make or buy that is the absolute answer to this, that will block all of it. But it can be quite expensive and quite cumbersome, because you're actually basically building a metal cage around your bed. So short of that, they do sell some bed linens that are woven with, I believe, silver threads and also act as a Faraday cage, but perhaps not as airtight as if you built a metal cage around your bed. So those are some various options that you can look into to mitigating that. I hope that's helpful.
Hey, Doc, real quick, I wanted to bring this up earlier. There was a publication in PubMed, and I managed to get it on video, and then YouTube took my channel down, and then YouTube took the videos down, and then PubMed made the doctors that wrote this article withdraw it.
Yeah, I think I know which one you're talking about.
Well, in the beginning of this, everyone kept saying 5G is why all these people are dying, and I kept saying that's not accurate. 5G isn't why all these people are dying. All these people are dying because they're making up numbers of dead people. Anyone that's dying, they're slapping COVID on it. Did you see the article where the doctors were saying the 5G, they straight up said it, 5G will cause the exact symptoms they are claiming COVID has. So I think this entire COVID thing is just a mask. Oh, no pun intended. It's just a mask until 5G is up and running, and then everyone's going to have COVID-19. See, you can't breathe. You got no oxygen. You're dying. I've never seen a medical paper taken down that fast in my life.
Well, I'll tell you, that whole paper really kind of mystified me because it was not a typical paper that would talk about that. Like you
It
think,
looked like I wrote it. You know what I mean?
well, I mean, except for the equations, right? Did you see all the equations in there? But it was not like you'd think, okay, they could take a 5G transmitter or a millimeter wave generating device and expose, skin cells to it. And then, because they were saying that it could cause skin cells to make coronavirus, right? And so they could do the experiment, but they didn't. Instead, they made a theoretical argument based on biophysics, basically. And that's why they had all these equations looking at specific characteristics of the 5G waveform and, energy and how that might theoretically interface with DNA and RNA and things like that. So it was really fascinating that they would even take that approach when I think it's pretty simple to do the experiment. And then the other thing that was really strange is they were basically saying that 5G would cause our cells to create coronavirus out of nowhere.
Right.
What I think they really meant is to induce exosomes, because that's what our cells make that looks like virus particles, right? And we know ionizing radiation causes exosome induction, and we know that stress and infection and acute illness. So there's definitely a hypothesis. I mean, I've talked about this before. Well, could millimeter wave radiation cause exosomes to be induced? And I think that's an experiment that should be done, actually. If maybe somebody's doing it right now and they haven't published it yet, but it would be easy to find out. But I don't think, necessarily that the powers that be want that to be known.
Well, I would imagine not. But fortunately, I've got a majority of that paper on video if you don't already have it. I know lots of people have sent the original article. I just thought it was strange. And to me, I mean, to a non-medical, to a regular lay person, when I looked at that, it looked like a group of doctors trying to get the word out any way they could, knowing that it was going to come down, because that was withdrawn within 24 hours. And my video was taken down off a backup channel I had just created that day. So they didn't even know it was me. There was no ties to me. The video was taken. That never happens. It never happens.
Right.
So it was crazy.
Well, there is a really interesting study that I think is Russian, but the way I got this is it was a declassified CIA document, and it tested 5G type of waves in laboratory mice. And it did find that it impaired the use of oxygen in those animals.
Oh, no doubt. It's a weapon. It's a, at any rate, I'm telling you. Go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, I'm just saying, like, it was pretty profound, the effects that it had. It reduced, like, the kidney function by 60% or something like that. And as well as other organs, because they couldn't utilize the oxygen, it blocked it from the mitochondria. And so this would, definitely could cause death, right? It could be that severe if it was done for a long enough time. So I think that was really, really telling, that radiation, and they knew about it our government has known about it. That came out in the 70s. So for like 50 years, our government has known that these millimeter waves are harmful, and yet they approved using them in the airport body scanners, right? And now they've approved them for telecommunications infrastructure.
I agree. The government knows exactly what they are. That's why they put, I can't think of his name. Are you kidding me? The FCC head that everyone's made videos about. Yes. I can't think of his name. His job was, he works for telecommunications. His job was pushing this stuff on people no matter what. They put him in the FCC real quick. He passed all the laws, and then they pulled him right back out again. It's just, sniper shot.
Well, anyone who, still trusts that the government is going to protect us in some way, like, they should realize that every government agency is like that. It's just a revolving door between the industry that it's supposed to regulate and that agency, and they're industry groups.
And it's worse. It's even worse than that now. At any rate, let's get back to the questions. I didn't mean to sidetrack you, but I didn't want to forget that while I had you on.
Yeah, no, it's good. I like having this kind of banter, and we get to some key issues. So,
you and I, we've been bantering since we were kids. We're good at it. All right, do your thing, brother.
All right, so we have Christopher from Louisiana who writes, what are your thoughts on vitamin B17 as a natural cancer treatment? Specifically speaking, high intake of bitter apricot seeds as the most common natural way to get it. Thanks for all you do. Keep it up. So I'm blanking on the other name for vitamin B17 right now, but I want to say that, I'm not really an expert in the specific treatment of cancer. And cancer is kind of a specialized area because there's a lot of nuances to it. But I do know that there are many, many things that can successfully treat people from cancer. Things that are based on, plants that grow in different areas, and also just different approaches that are tried in different places of the world. Like you have like the Gerson clinic that does a lot of juicing and coffee enemas. For example, you have other places that focus on B17. You have a doctor in Italy that uses intravenous bicarbonate to alkalinize the blood. So all these approaches can be successful, and including B17. So I think it's definitely worth looking at. And what I would do is, if it were someone that was asking me for specific advice, is I'd look at, a particular type of cancer that you're trying to treat and see what the track record is with other people for that cancer, and then make the best decision. I'm not sure if getting it directly from the apricot seeds or another source is better, to be honest with you, but that's definitely something to look into. Richie, were you going to add something there?
No, I was shocked it took you that long to mention something like a coffee or a chocolate enema or whatever. You managed to get it in there. Just real quick. Yes, everyone, Del Bigtree's channel got taken down. We know that. We're aware. We just mentioned it. So, but I digress. Go ahead.
All right. So now we have Alicia from Illinois, who asks, what is the best treatment at home and otherwise for lupus, SLE, and fibromyalgia? I'm in a lot of pain every day and always fatigued. I have neuropathy and radiculopathy. Any vitamins or minerals that may help? I take vitamin D and B12 for the deficiencies I have. I was a very healthy woman until about 5 to 7 years ago or so. I'm only 4 years old. I would love to wake up not tired and in pain. So yes, Alicia, there's definitely a lot of things that can help, and some of the people that have worked with me have had some very good results with autoimmune disease like that. I think there could be several different things involved, and it's too complicated really to give you all the answers here, but that's definitely the kind of thing that would be great to consult me about, that we could get into the details and see what individual factors. But in general, I think there's, heavy metals, parasites are a big part of the issue. Certainly, toxicity. It's not the kind of thing that you can just take some supplements and really recover from, but there are definitely ways to address it. So, please consider a consultation. Okay, we have Jeff Gold from Nevada. He writes, I've been diagnosed with polymyalgia rheumatica. So let me give the same advice to you, that because that's another autoimmune disease, and it specifically affects the muscles. So it might be you experience it different, but there are similar things involved with causing that illness. So one thing that you guys could consider, both of you, for lupus, fibromyalgia, and polymyalgia rheumatica, and any other autoimmune disease, if you want to try it on your own, I suggest you go to vitalitycapsules.com and download the Candida Cleaner Report. And that is basically a document that tells you all about turpentine, and including how to use it and a protocol. And if you want to do it completely on your own, I think you could have some really good results just doing that without anything else. And if you do, please let me know how it works out. Okay, Lauren D. from Philadelphia writes, recurring melanoma on fair skin, going alkaline, fasting. Any other advice on cancer prevention? Well, Lauren D., there's a lot you can do for cancer prevention, but I want to give some information that's more specific to your situation. So this is not comprehensive, but so you say that you have fair skin, and I also wonder if you might have thin or atrophic skin. So that could most likely be from just not getting enough collagen. I know I mention this a lot out here that people may not have enough collagen in your body, but things are more likely to happen in your skin in terms of any kind of outbreak or lesion if you don't have healthy, thick skin from enough collagen. So if you spend a couple of months eating collagen-rich foods like bone broth or a quarter cup a day of gelatin powder, that will go a long way to increasing the resilience of your skin. But overall, cancer really is related to toxic burden, that when the body can no longer manage the toxins and putting them in harmless places and has to get to a point where it's either putting it in a vital organ or doing something else, I think that's when cancer comes about. So you want to think about cleaning up your lifestyle. So that could include your diet and your water, but also could include things you put on your skin or household products, depending on what your exposure to those things. So I would think about detoxifying your life and supplementing with collagen. Okay. Also, I should not forget to mention, don't use commercially prepared sunscreens because those have probably resulted in causing skin cancers rather than preventing them. If you are going to spend a lot of time out in the sun that you want to avoid a burn, I would suggest using carrot seed oil, and you can just use that in its pure form. There are some preparations where it might be mixed with other things, but it works really well. I think it has like an SPF equivalent of like 60, so you will not get a sunburn, and it's very safe to put on your skin. You could eat it. It's not harmful. So I would consider doing that. Okay, so we have Vicky from Maine, who asks, what is the safest drinking water, distilled or reverse osmosis? Can you weigh in on both? Well, certainly, this is something I talk about a lot, Vicky, as you may know. And I recommend either or as being adequate. If you want to get technical about it, distilled water is slightly more pure because the distillation process really makes it just about completely pure, whereas the filtration is going to leave some small trace amounts of things behind. But in my opinion, not to a degree that's going to cause any problems. So this is really more theoretical. And I think in practical terms, the reverse osmosis is a little bit more usable. And I generally recommend it when people own their own home because it requires some installation. Although there may be a tabletop product that someone mentioned to me, but I haven't looked into it. But in general, you put this under the sink and you mount a special faucet, and that's like dedicated for your drinking water. But it's convenient because, you can wash your vegetables in it and use it to fill pots, as well, where if you get a distiller, that's more like a coffee maker, and the distilled water is in a carafe. So, you have to pour it out of that. It's not coming out of a tap. But I think another thing to consider with the water is that you want to structure your water after the purification process. And you can do this a number of ways, like just by putting an intention of gratitude into the water can actually improve its structure. But they do make some devices that basically you just pour it through the device and it creates a vortex and helps to structure the water. And so if you want to even improve upon it beyond just the purification, I would suggest that would be the next step to look into. All right. We have Sandra Montanaro from Noonan, Georgia. She asks, how do you stop ringing in the ears, and how do you dissolve a cataract in your eye? So the ringing in the ears is probably toxicity from some kind of processed food, some kind of chemical in it. It could be from another type of chemical exposure. And probably some detoxification is required. One thing that may be effective is Shilajit, which is a trace mineral supplement, or fulvic acid or fulvic minerals, or some different names for a similar product. If you have some toxic metals causing it, they can be displaced by giving you the right trace metals. So that may improve it. And then the other thing would just be increase your water and increase your bowel movements to do some detox. And if you want to talk about it more specifically, that would be the kind of thing that we might be able to get really down to the bottom of it with a consultation. With the cataract issue, there are two things I know of that are pretty effective. A couple of people have told me they're trying these at present. So in the future, if this question comes up, I'll give some of the results if those people tell me how it worked. But one thing is to use DMSO eye drops. So like over at Yum Naturals Emporium, Dr. Amanda Vollmer's website, she sells the drops that are pre-made for eye drops. There's one with just DMSO and one that has added vitamin C in it, which I think would be definitely the way to go. I usually tell people about the one with vitamin C. The other thing that I've heard that works is actually putting Vicks VapoRub in the eyes. And this is from Dr. Jennifer Daniels. And it's going to burn and sting for 10 or 15 minutes. So she suggested to do it at bedtime and take a small, like pea-sized amount and basically like pull your eye down and make a pocket with your lower lid. Hopefully people can, and then just plop it in there and go to sleep. And do that like, every day for a week. And that might have a major improvement in your cataracts. So hopefully those help. Definitely better to try those things before surgery. Okay. Cynthia from Stockton asks, what would be a natural antibiotic? Uh-oh, Cynthia. So Cynthia, there's no need for a natural antibiotic because my bacteria don't cause the infection. So what I think is going on when you have an infection is that when you're having the symptoms, that it's actually the recovery. And those microorganisms have been summoned to that area to repair and clean up the damage from an illness that occurred before that. And I think most of the time we don't actually experience symptoms during the acute phase of the illness, although we may have some mild ones. But once those bacteria come and they start secreting things and cause inflammation, which all of those symptoms are ways to basically get the waste materials out of our body, right? Like when we have mucus coming out, it comes out and removes waste materials with it. The swelling increases the blood flow, which brings nutrients to the site and then also lets those waste products be taken away to be sent to the liver and kidneys. So what you want to do is to deal with an infection is one, let your body go through the natural process. So don't do things that are going to interrupt the symptoms because those are actually your body healing. But what you can do is do things to support the detoxification process. So in other words, help those bacteria do their job by supporting that. So like if it's, let's say, a cold or an upper respiratory infection, you could do neti pots. So you're basically taking salt water and flushing out the inside. So any debris and waste material and gunk that's in there will just come out into the sink, and that will help your body recover more quickly. So think about it from that perspective. Okay, we have Lauren from Pennsylvania. This is the second Lauren in today's questions. It must be a lucky name. Frequent UTIs only after met husband. Past 10 years, almost guaranteed to get it after sex. Follow all advice like bathroom before, after, cranberry. OBGYN gave antibiotics to take every time after sex. Why and what is better to do? Wow. So I hope this hasn't put too much of a damper on your marital affairs there, but I do think I have some advice. So most of the time with urinary tract infections that are recurrent, I think that chronic dehydration is a big issue because there's basically not enough fluids flushing through the urinary system to, like the urinary system is for the purpose of getting rid of toxins out of your body, right? So when you have urine, you have toxins in it, and when you're dehydrated, the urine gets more concentrated. Like you've known that when you were dehydrated sometime, right, and you went to the bathroom, the pee was like really bright, like dark yellow, right? That's because of all the toxins that are in there that your body's getting rid of. So when those things sit in the bladder for a long time, right, they become irritants and they cause the tissue to get inflamed, and then they get the bacterial response to clean it up. So if you just are adequately hydrated, and I recommend a minimum of 1 quart of water for every 60 pounds of body weight on a daily basis, that is going to help flush these things through and definitely prevent it. I'm not sure, what you might do just around sexual relations that might help, because you've tried the sort of typical things, but maybe just drinking more water on those days might be helpful. There could be other things involved, because I didn't have the opportunity to ask you how much water you drink in a day or what other kind of beverages. But if you do want to get more personalized information, please reach out to me. Okay. We have Janet Woods from Pennsylvania also, who writes, I'm in my 50s, and for the last 7 years, I've been getting flu vaccines. And after all this, I've learned I don't want any shot. Can you give me your opinion on which shots you wouldn't recommend, like Bill Gates is out? So that is an easy question to answer. I don't recommend any shots at all. I would say don't get any of the shots, because none of the vaccines have been proven to work. They all have a lot of potential to cause harm, and the illnesses that they're trying to prevent aren't caused by germs. So definitely no vaccines for me. All right, Donna Leone in Australia writes, for someone with extreme allergy sensitivity to chemicals, reflux, and asthma, do you have any advice, re alternative treatments in the absence or possible shortage of medicines in the times ahead? The person is currently under care of a specialist. Okay, well, you mentioned a bunch of different things here: sensitivity to chemicals, reflux, and asthma. So I would say all of these things are probably related to a high burden of toxicity. And so I think, usually when it gets to the point of being highly sensitive to chemicals, that tells me that there's really a lot of toxicity. So this is going to take some time and some effort to detox, to deal with these issues. And if you're taking proton pump inhibitors for reflux, those could be difficult to taper off of, because it can cause much, much worse reflux during the withdrawal than you ever had to begin with. So I think this might be the time that you want to get in touch with me for more information, but you should be definitely thinking about doing some serious detox. I do have a video on my channel where I just talk about the overall strategy of how you can do detox, and I talk about a variety of different methods. So that might be helpful for you to take a look at and just get some early information to decide how you want to proceed. All right, we got some unusual questions coming up. And one here from Cyrus in the United Kingdom says, once a plant, etc., has its DNA altered, the company can patent it and control it legally. Once people take the Bill virus Gates RNA DNA altering virus vaccines, who owns the new altered human DNA? Just like a GMO seed, are you then still God's creation or man-made? So Cyrus, this is an excellent question. And I want to refer you to two other sources, actually, because we could definitely talk at length about this. And I do think, yes, this is a real concern and definitely something that you want to learn a little bit more about. So one is I did an interview with Spiro Skouras, who's an excellent journalist, because originally I had made the claim that vaccines would make us GMO humans, and that was criticized by Reuters. So I went back on to do a second interview and showed from mainstream sources like Harvard's website that their claims that criticized me were actually not valid, and it will in fact make us GMO. So this is a real concern. But the real source on this is that James Corbett did a piece a couple of weeks ago called "Will Genetically Modified Humans Be Patented?" And I strongly suggest you take a look at that, because they do he does a really good investigation on all the ins and outs of that. All right, we have Andrew L. from Oceanside, California, who writes, are there treatments for tinnitus I've suffered for many years? I wish I could know again the sweet solace of silence. So I think I answered this question a little bit earlier, that you can try the Shilajit or fulvic minerals and do some detox, and then get in touch with me if you want to help finding out what the specific cause is for you. So what you got up there, Richie?
Oh, I'm just showing the Israeli Times where they're showing the Department of Defense funded vaccine that they will be administering, made by Inovio, which is secretly just still Bill Gates and ID 2020. But it clearly outlines exactly what it is, and it will absolutely, without a doubt, change your DNA. And they're saying that. The medication is injected under the skin with a needle, then activated with a device that resembles a toothbrush, which will deliver an electrical impulse for a fraction of a second, allowing the DNA to penetrate the body's cells and carry out its mission. Now, the fact that everyone on Earth doesn't know this story doesn't surprise me, but is still surprising, because when have you ever heard of a vaccine that then requires an outside electrical device to activate it, so the DNA in the vaccine can penetrate your body's cells and carry out its mission?
This is a really key part of this, DNA RNA vaccine technology, right? Because it needs our cells to actually make the product, right? To make the protein that's coded for in that genetic material. So it's kind of like turning us into a foreign organism by doing that, right? But there needs to be some way for that DNA or RNA to get into our cells, because it doesn't just get in there on its own when it's like injected freely. And so this electrical, it's called electroporation, right? And they had another version of it where they actually had a 3-needle syringe, and now they have something where they put a brush on top of your skin. But there are other ways that they do this too. So the other companies are using different techniques, and they may not involve electroporation, but actually you can use electromagnetic frequencies to achieve this too. There are research papers you can find on that. So 5G, in other words, could make this happen. And that would be especially important if we're all exposed to it, because there is free genetic material already in all the vaccines that are administered on a regular basis. And a lot of that is from aborted fetal cell culture lines, right? I think you must have talked about that before. So, so it's really scary, but there are other ways that they can make little particles that are like similar to viruses too, that can, target specific cells in your body and then deliver that genetic material so that it can be, taken up in our own cells and into the nucleus, if it's DNA, and, be passed down to daughter cells.
Andrew, are you seeing this comment right here from the guy in Germany?
Yep.
I would like, if you can get any links to Dr. Kaufman or myself, rjcjr10@yahoo.com. rjcjr10@yahoo.com. Because saying it's one thing, but links or in writing makes it much more believable. So at any rate,
no, it's great to hear that any doctors would be giving warnings about this, and definitely be great to know who they are and reach out to them, or at least look at them, look at what they're saying. Okay, shall we continue?
Have at it, brother.
All right, so we have Marlene Wolverton from Arizona, who asks, my husband experiences much discomfort and shoulder pain from tendon ligament damage due to heavy weight training for over 30 years. How can he repair this damage through food supplements and or therapy, rather than relying in traditional medical interventions such as surgery? Well, that's a good question, Marlene. And, I think he could definitely do this. One thing I would recommend is that, be careful what he's doing with his shoulder exercises, and he may want to get some consultation with like a sports physical therapist or a sports therapist of some kind, to see what exercises he could do, because shoulder is a very complicated joint. And I've had shoulder problems myself from baseball and tennis. And I know that certain exercises, for example, things like upright rows or military presses, can be very, very difficult for your shoulders. And so you might want to choose other things like lateral raises, for example, that are much friendlier on the shoulder joints, and take it a little bit easy with the weights until you feel like you recover from this. But I think, there are many things that could help. Certainly doing some cleansing, if you haven't done that, would be a great thing to do to start this off. But I think really what you need to do is supplement with collagen. Because especially if you've been a heavy bodybuilder, then you've had extra demand for collagen to build up all those tissues and strengthen the ligaments and tendons. And you just reached a point in your life when you kind of were not having enough raw materials, and it weakened some of those tissues and caused some of the pain. So I would definitely suggest going that route. All right.
You're killing it, Andrew. You're killing it, brother. Do you need a break?
No, man, I can just keep going.
I know you can. Get at it, brother.
But we'll stop in about 7 or 8 minutes. So see if I can get through a few more.
Do what you can, man. Do what you can, honestly. Just the fact that you give your time is amazing as it is.
Well, we have say what?
I said, do your thing.
All right. We have Ryan Groen from Nebraska, who writes, well, actually, he wanted to say it was Northeast Nebraska because those Southern Nebraskans, you don't want to be associated with them. But he writes, 1, if according to Koch's first postulate, the microorganism must be found in abundance in those with the disease, but must not be found in the healthy, does that mean that asymptomatic carriers are BS? Yes, I would agree with that statement. I would. But let's look at the evidence just to be a little bit scientific. So there's one study that's quite well done on COVID with respect to asymptomatic carriers. And they followed someone who had a positive test and made contact with a lot of people. In fact, 455 people. And what do you think the results were? Well, not one person got sick or even converted to a positive test. So this, I think, really tells you empirically that asymptomatic carriers is really not a thing. And just think about it for a second. If viruses are as described, and let's just talk about viruses for a second, but the same will be true of other microorganisms, where they write the word virulent, right? What does that mean? Right? It means deadly, attack, danger, right? It has all those connotations. This thing comes in, invades, and as soon as it gets into a cell, it multiplies and millions of copies of it come out, right? So you can imagine like the way that it would spread around the body from even a single virus if it really worked that way. So why would it just be in one person's body not doing anything, and in another person's body causing devastation and and serious illness? It just really doesn't make sense. You'd have to have a really, really good explanation to why that would be the case.
So are you officially and publicly calling shenanigans on that?
I think that's exactly the right word, Richie.
Nice.
All right, so there's two more questions. I'm gonna humor Ryan today. So 1, can you culture a virus? Well, no, well, if a virus doesn't exist, how do you culture it? There's ways to create virus particles in lower organisms, like for bacteria. If you basically put them in a purified culture and create very harsh environmental conditions in a laboratory, you will generate bacteriophages. So in that way, you might culture a virus. They really don't have like virus cultures as a clinical test. What they do is they put the body fluid in with some tissue culture, and then they see cell damage, and they say that that's a virus culture, but it's not like it creates a lot more virus, and then they can purify out that virus and do other experiments on it. So I hope that answers your question clearly. And then 3, do you have a crush on Dr. Tenpenny? What an interesting question. Well, I do have a crush on somebody right now, but it is not Dr. Tenpenny, sad to say, but I'll tell you more on that later. Okay, we have Clara Macario from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I have had type 2 diabetes for 22 years now. on and off diets, natural, vegan, etc., and have been on keto since January 2020, so about 6 months. I'm 59, 1.66 meters, and weigh 57 kilos. I do gym every day and fast 19 hours daily, eat at midday and 5 p.m. I've reduced my meds to half the amount, but still need metformin and glimepiride, or my sugars go up to 180 without them. What can I do, please, to get cured? Well, let me tell you, first of all, Clara, that's really awesome that you made these changes and you've had really, really good progress. So I know it's not perfect, but to be honest with you, blood sugars of 180 is nothing to worry about. So, if that's what you're getting without the medicines, I would question if you really the medicines are going to offer any benefit. But I do believe that you can actually completely cure the diabetes. And I've worked with some clients and they have done some things and had some great success. So, and it did not involve a keto diet. I take a different approach in my information. So please feel free to get in touch with me, and I think you could make even more progress, but definitely give yourself a pat on the back. That's like really good that you did that and you did it all yourself. All right, we have Tristan from Michigan. Hello, I am a male, and thanks for clarifying. And I have had large lumps in my nipples since I was 15.
Oh,
I knew Richie was going to like this one.
Oh, go ahead.
So the doctor told me it was gynecomastia, right? Which is like the medical term. We're talking about man boobs here, Richie.
Unbelievable.
There aren't a lot of like cosmetic problems that affect men, but this is one. We should be sensitive about this.
I'm not sensitive about anything. Being sensitive is overrated. I'm all set with that. Go ahead. You got 2 minutes, brother.
Okay. So, and that is part of puberty and will go away on its own. I'm now nearly 24 and they're still here. I exercise and take supplements like garlic and turmeric to help, but have no success. Been told that surgery is the only option. Do you have natural solutions? Well, so there's not exactly a solution, but most likely you're being exposed to some kind of chemical or food that has estrogenic properties. And these could be a lot of things, right? We know like BPA, for example, which is in a lot of plastics, and they just substitute other bisphosphenols for that one. So, if you're around a lot of plastics or working in an industry where you're exposed to those types of chemicals, that would be something to consider. But there are many, many things. If you're not eating organic foods, there can be certain pesticides and herbicides like atrazine that have estrogenic properties. Almost all soy products will have this, so definitely stay away from soy, dairy products. So you can definitely take some dietary restrictions approach. It's going to take a little time for this tissue to resolve and change. If you have what it is really is that you have some glandular tissue there that's proliferating, and it feels like that kind of soft, fatty tissue like a woman's breast would be, and it does happen in many men. But I think it's mostly as a result of these environmental exposures. I think cannabis has also been associated with this. So if you're smoking weed, you might want to take a break from that for several months and see if you can get this to go away. And then I think, doing some exercise, like working out, is a good approach, because if you build up your chest muscles, then it kind of spreads out the tissue and it looks better. Make sure that you don't neglect your back though, like balance out, both sides. Otherwise you end up looking all hunched over. But hopefully that will help with that problem. And I think if you are diligent and keep looking for the answer, that you'll be able to improve this over time. So what do you think? One more question?
It's your call, brother.
All right, let's do one more. Oh, this is a great one. This is perfect for Richie. All right, this is Vicky from St. Louis, Missouri. Thank you for your time and the services you provide. You're welcome, Vicky. Thanks for this question. You are really good at addressing gross topics, so this is my question.
Oh.
I'm going on 67 this year, but about 5 years ago, I started noticing very bad BO from the pits, It's coming from the inside out, if you know what I mean. What causes this, and is there anything I can do about it?
Oh,
So this is a great question. I love these kind of questions.
why is that? Well, whatever. I guess from a medical point of view, it's very interesting, but it's just I would be
Well,
embarrassed to write that. You know what I mean?
yeah, no, I know. And, that, well, she's somewhat anonymous, right? I mean, there's more than one Vicky in St. Louis, but,
Maybe
but,
that could be a conspiracy.
but, like the reason is it's because this is like a common experience. We all have this, right? Where we might have some body odor from time to time. And then, also like I'm really against antiperspirants because you're putting aluminum in your body when and it's like the reason why it smells bad and the reason why sweat comes out there is because that's one of your detox routes. And what happens is that there are special bacteria that live in your armpits and also in your groin area that are different from the rest of your skin. And they're basically eating up the waste that comes out in your secretions. And if they're eating up toxic stuff, then their waste is gonna smell worse, right? And that's what the BO is. So Vicky, what you really need to do is clean up your diet and do some cleansing. So you can definitely take a look at that detox video that I mentioned to get some more information. But we're talking about increase your water, increase your bowel movements, and cleaning up your diet. If you want to, consult with me for more specific information, we can go into a lot of detail. But also, let me just give you an alternative that you can use to that toxic aluminum antiperspirant. Because when we put things on our skin, a lot of things get absorbed, and I think we've been kind of raised to believe that our skin is like an impermeable barrier, but it's really not. So if you look at the label of anything you're going to put on your skin and you see stuff that you don't know what it is, that should make you be concerned and question, should I really be doing this? So what I suggest is, that you can get an essential oil, one that you like the fragrance of, like lemon is a classic. And you can dilute it a little bit with a carrier oil like almond oil or castor oil even if you want, or you can just put a little bit straight and just rub it right under your armpit, and that will help control the issue on a temporary basis until you can do some detox and smell better overall. So what a way to end the show, huh, Richie?
Indeed. All right. So once again, Dr. Kaufman, I appreciate your time, brother. Everything, if you want to consult with Dr. Kaufman one-on-one, if you have a legit problem and you want to talk to him straight up, the links will be pinned in the comment section, as always, as well as his website and his YouTube channel. And all three are up right now as far as we know. So,
right. And don't forget the link to submit questions for future shows.
Oh, yeah. Yep. My mistake. Yep. Everything will be in there. We do know that Del Bigtree's channel's down, but so isn't mine. And it should come back up tomorrow. And it'll probably be down Saturday for good. So it is what it is.
Yeah, we're all headed that way, but we're going to still keep putting this stuff out there and wherever we can.
As long as we can. All right, brother. You're going to jump out because I'm going to do a couple more things at the end of this real quick.
Okay. All right. Well, Ricky, thanks a lot for having me on.
I put out some bad info yesterday. I want to clean it up today. So.
Well, good for you. That's the right thing to do, right?
It is what it is.
All right. Well, you take care. See everybody soon.
Again, I appreciate your time. All the links will be pinned in the comment section so you can get a hold of Dr. Kaufman if you so desire.
Awesome. All right.
All right, brother.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye. All right, real quick. I put this out yesterday, and I just wanted to show. I put out the worldometer's numbers for 250,000 plus people dying of the influenza. That was not in the United States. That was worldwide. The only place I can get any death and mortality numbers, a little Freudian slip there, is from the CDC. Sadly, I don't believe one thing the CDC says. And then to back that up, this is their number for this year. I'm sorry, for 2017. They don't show any numbers for 2019 or 2020 that I can find. Do you see what I'm saying? Only 2018 and 2017. But we've put up, I don't know how many videos showing everybody in charge of this talking about, we don't care, if somebody dies with COVID, then they died of COVID. This is a hoax. This is a complete and utter hoax. The design is to usher in Agenda 21 in the forced vaccine. And the forced vaccine has been ready. I don't care. I understand people want to hold on to hope all they possibly can. But let me tell you something. When you see a vaccine that is being openly, they're talking about it at the Times of Israel. You don't see this back home, do you? Because they know that most Americans aren't reading this stuff. I've gone over this time and time again. When they're giving you a medication that's injected under the skin with a needle, then activated with a device that resembles a toothbrush. They're using the word toothbrush because everyone has a toothbrush. Toothbrush ain't going to hurt you. It's benign. Well, this device that resembles a toothbrush delivers an electrical impulse for a fraction of a second, allowing the DNA that's injected under the skin with the needle to penetrate the body's cells and carry out its mission. Inovio is the one that's taking credit for making this, but it's still ID 2020. I'm not stupid. Inovio, which is financed by the United States Department of Defense and the non-governmental organization CEPI. It's been included in Donald Trump's plan to produce hundreds of millions of doses that will be part of Operation Warp Speed. And all of this medical care, because they care so much about humanity and people and living organisms, will be delivered to you by the military. Because that's what you do in a medical emergency. I mean, honestly, there's 1,000 people in this live stream right now, 700 on Dr. Kaufman's channel. The entire time this epidemic's been going on, this pandemic, whatever they want to call it, I've been traveling coast to coast, back and forth, east to west, north to south. I've met people of every walk of life, and people have found me from every walk of life. And the best I got was last week in Colorado, where a guy said, "Oh yeah, in January I was diagnosed with COVID, and he had a hard time breathing. He had a chest cold. They told him it was COVID, and I saw him and his girlfriend riding around on a motorcycle. Other than that, nobody's sick, nobody's dying. We've got more. It's easier to document people that are being labeled as COVID that died from a gunshot, car accident, or whatever else than it is to actually find any real numbers. So, but long story short, when I said 260,000, I was inaccurate. It happens. I'm some asshole with a laptop with a cardboard cutout behind me on YouTube. So there's that. But the difference about this particular asshole is I've been saying stuff they do not want you to hear, because I've never had over 100 YouTube videos taken down in a 4-month time span, and then my channel keeps getting taken down and taken down. My main channel should be reinstated tomorrow, and I would imagine within 48 hours it will be gone for good, because one more strike and it's gone, and that's what they're doing. And same thing on this channel, but it is what it is. All right, guys, Richie from Boston. You want to talk to Dr. Kaufman one-on-one? He's a solid dude. I'll leave all the links that you possibly need to get a hold of him. And that is pretty much it. The live stream on Jailbreak, I'm going to postpone that till tomorrow because it's 5 o'clock already. It is what it is. I thought this was more important than doing a giveaway today. Richie from Boston, I am out.